Hey guys, this week for Weapons Wednesday, we're going to test out some mall ninja weapons and see how tough they actually are. But before we begin, if you could just like this video and subscribe to our channel, that would be awesome. So last week, for our Halloween edition of Weapons Wednesday, Amanda and Melanie gave you 5 different weapons to choose from in order to fight off an evil clown. And then they asked you to go to the community tab and vote for which one you would choose. And you guys went to the community tab and voted for the Stealth Gladius sword. That's an excellent choice, guys. Actually, I chose the Parang, but I think this was an excellent choice because it's got a lot of reach to it. So definitely a good weapon to defend against killer evil clowns. So this week, we're going to do something a little bit different. If you've been watching my channel for any extended period of time, you know that I absolutely do not like mall ninja weapons. They're just not my favorite, and for those of you who aren't familiar with mall ninja weapons, those are the kind of weapons to where when you're walking through the mall, you kind of see a weapons store, and then you see all of these display weapons hanging on the wall, and they're just kind of cheesy. They're not really realistic. They're more fantasy type weapons. So I don't really like those, but I love to test them out, and I love to see how easily I can break them. So I asked Amanda to go back into the warehouse and find the cheesiest mall ninja weapons she could find, and we're gonna actually test them out today, see how easy they are to break. So without further ado, Amanda, what is our first cheesy mall ninja weapon?
There you go.
Thank you. All right, let's see what this guy is. This is going to be a fun video. Oh, wow. All right, so our very first cheesy mall ninja weapon is the Flaming Dragon Blade. Oh man, this is nuts. Okay, so first off, we can see that it comes with this really nice display stand, which is kind of cool, and then we just add the blade to it. So I actually kind of like that. Like I could see that sitting on my desk or something, looking kind of cool and interesting for when people come into the office. You have something to kind of talk about a little bit. But I want to see if this is actually a legitimate weapon. So let's look at the sword itself. So first off, we can see that the blade is made from a 2CR13 stainless steel. So we've talked a little bit about 3CR13 stainless steel over the weeks, and as you know, it's not really my favorite steel, but this is actually 2CR13 stainless steel, which is just a little bit different in the respect that it is a little more corrosion resistant, but it's actually a weaker steel than 3CR13 stainless steel. So this is definitely not my favorite steel. Looks good for a mall ninja weapon, but definitely not something I'd want to actually use in any sort of combat situation. But the thing I'm most concerned about when I look at this is what is the tang of this blade? The manufacturer states nothing about it, so I don't know how this blade is connected into the handle here. And this handle is made from a cast metal, and it seems like it's kind of cheap. Like I have a feeling that actually might fall apart if we're gonna swing or hit something with that. So we're gonna test the heck out of this thing just to see. But this blade is actually about 11.5 inches, so that is super intimidating for a blade. And the total length of this is about 21.5 inches, and the total weight is about 1 pound, 10.7 ounces. So that actually feels pretty nice in my hand. Like I actually think I could get some pretty good momentum with it. But here's another problem with this. We can tell that the blade itself is not even sharpened. So what good is that going to do for us? So I think the first thing we really need to do is sharpen up this blade. So I'm actually going to take this in back and let's go sharpen that up and just see if we can turn this into a weapon that we can actually use. So let's go in back. So as you can see, it only took me a few minutes to sharpen up this blade, and it's actually super sharp now. So that's one thing I love about 2CR13 stainless steel and 3CR13 stainless steel is they're actually really easy to sharpen. So I actually like that about it. Now some of the other things about this sword. So first off, we can see that the metal kind of has these jagged edges in it, and that really doesn't do anything in practical purposes, but what it does do is it gives it kind of a nice aesthetic appeal. It actually looks like the dragon is breathing that fire that's in the shape of metal, so that's kind of neat, right? And then it's also got this little design that's on the blade that it looks like it's just kind of printed on the blade, the little dragon fire in red, so I kind of like that little touch as well. But you guys don't care. You want to see me actually test this thing out, see how hard it is to break. So now that it's sharpened, let's actually check the point first. We've got this Wing Chun dummy right here. Let's see if this thing will actually stab okay. Now it is a trailing point blade here. So the problem with trailing point is it's not the best stabbing blade. Great for things like skinning. Not the best for stabbing, but let's just try it out, okay? Okay, so that actually stuck in there rather nicely. I'm actually fairly impressed with that, but that's a good sharpening too. So, I mean, look at that. That actually sticks pretty nice. So, Mall Ninja weapons, they actually can be an effective weapon. They're just not gonna hold up as well for you. But I wanna actually try seeing if we can break this. So let's actually hammer against this Wing Chun dummy a little bit and just see how well the handle holds up here. So I'm actually gonna slash pretty hard. Oh my goodness, look at that. That thing's in there tight. Still pretty solid. I mean, I mean, if you can tell me that that is not gonna be an effective weapon, you'd have to do a lot of convincing, because that actually would be fairly effective if you actually had to use it as a weapon. So I'm kind of impressed with that. But how are we going to break this thing? What are we going to do to try to break this? I'm going to try to hit the handle really hard and see if we can kind of break around this area. So let's try that. You know what? I'll punch it kind of like a knuckle duster. We'll see how that goes. Okay, I mean, it's still sticking in there just by the jagged blades. So that's actually fairly impressive. This cast metal handle is actually holding up pretty well. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to break this actually. I mean, it's a little bit loose now, but it would take a lot to break this thing. So honestly, I'm fairly impressed with it now that it's been sharpened properly. So yeah. I think that's all the testing we should do on it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this away, and let's move on to our next Mall Ninja weapon. All right, Amanda, what is the next cheesy Mall Ninja weapon you have for me today?
There you go.
Awesome. All right, this is fun. See what this guy is. Okay, and our next cheesy Mall Ninja weapon is the Spiked Combat Knuckle Knife. Okay, now how is that a Mall Ninja weapon? Okay. This is actually a knife that's very similar to a knife that was used in a very popular 80s action movie. And this is definitely a little bit Mall Ninja. I can tell by the handle. So first off, we can see that this is a stainless steel blade, and based on the sheen of it, it looks like a 440 stainless steel, which 440 is definitely not my favorite steel, but it is nice in the respect that it's corrosion resistant. It's fairly sharp. That's not overly sharp. The tip is fairly sharp, not overly sharp, but then it's got all of these little spikes on it, and it looks like there's 9 sharp 3/4 inch spikes. So those are pretty nice. Now, the biggest problem I have with this so far is the handle. We can see that it's full tang, blade goes all the way through the handle, but I am not impressed by this handle. It looks like it's some sort of ABS on there that kind of surrounds the metal, but it's just not very comfortable. I mean, I have pretty large hands. My hands don't fit very nicely in there. They do fit, but I would say if you have hands that are any larger than mine, it's not gonna fit at all. So, hey, Amanda, could you come over here and just try this on really quick? I wanna see on your hands, because you have small Amanda hands. All right.
So yeah, that worked for my hands. That's definitely not an issue for me.
Oh, it's pretty comfortable?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, that's good to know. Okay, well, I want to test this out in a couple different ways. I want to test to see if these spikes are going to break off, if we actually use those. And I want to see if this handle's going to break at all. So I think that's kind of important. So we can also see that there's a hollow grind on this blade, but that's a very shallow hollow grind. So I'm guessing they had big grinding wheels when they were making that. And then there's a swedge on the top, and that's a very shallow swedge too. I would probably sharpen up the swedge if I bought this, just because I kind of like to do that. But if you ever do decide to do that, definitely check your local laws, because there's a lot of laws that state if a blade is sharpened on both sides, it's actually an illegal weapon. So you have to be careful about that. But yeah, let's go ahead and test this out just a little bit. So first off, I am very curious to test these spikes right here. And because my hand is kind of uncomfortable in there because that's really tight, I'm actually a little bit nervous about my fingers themselves. So as you know, with knuckle dusters, there's a couple different ways you're supposed to use them. You can either use them a little bit higher and swipe with them, or you can punch with them. Now this specific knife, I would think would make more sense to kind of keep in this grip. So let's try punching with it. Okay, so it definitely hurt this finger a little bit. I was punching pretty hard though. It didn't hurt enough to actually break the fingers, but it was uncomfortable, and I think that's just because the handle's so small. But let's try chopping with this, because this is kind of an awkward handle to chop with. So let's try that. Okay, I mean, it sticks pretty well, but I mean, again, it's uncomfortable because it's so tight in here. So let's try stabbing with this. Okay, so it does stab, but I mean, the thing's not even falling out of my hand. So if you were to buy this, I would only use it as a display weapon, or consider it a practical weapon only if you have very small hands. The blade length is approximately 5.5 inches, the total length is approximately 10.5 inches, and the total weight is approximately 11.2 ounces. So it actually has a really nice weight to it, it's just not comfortable for me, so that's the only problem. And then it comes with this genuine leather sheath. But again, I'm just not impressed with this genuine leather sheath. It just feels kind of cheap to me. So again, a mall ninja weapon, not really legitimate weapon, but that's what we're here for. We're testing these out today to see if they're any good. I'm gonna throw it in a different grip and just see how well we can actually stab with it. Man, and I can't even fit my fingers in that extra grip, but okay, there we go. So, okay. So it actually, I mean, if I could get my fingers out, that actually sticks pretty nicely. There we go. Okay, so I was actually able to get a little bit of momentum on that blade, but it just doesn't fit my hand right. So yeah, but let's go ahead and put that away and move on to our next cheesy mall ninja weapon. All right, Amanda, what is our next mall ninja weapon?
There you go.
Awesome, thank you. All right, this is so much fun. Let's see what this guy is. All right, so our next mall ninja weapon is the Apocalyptic Spiked Club. Oh man, this thing is nuts. This technically probably isn't a mall ninja weapon, but I can see why we would consider it that. Because the spikes on this thing aren't even sharp. So that's just a little bit disappointing. It's definitely made out of a hardwood, and then they stained it, but they did a really shady job on staining it. So I am not impressed with that at all. The balance is off on this. Like if I were to hold it, I would want to hold it a little bit higher. But they've got the grip lines down here, and it's just so off balance. So I think I'd struggle to actually use this as a combat weapon. So that's just a little bit disappointing. I'm curious how well this wood is going to hold up, and I'm actually curious how well these spikes are going to hold up. So if I were to buy this and actually wanted to turn it into a legitimate weapon, first thing I do is I just sharpen up these spikes. I think that would make it a little bit better. They're definitely steel spikes with a black finish, so that's kind of neat. So the overall length of this is approximately 23 inches, and it weighs approximately 1 pound 13 ounces. So that's a decent weight for this. Honestly, I think this would make an excellent cosplay weapon, but not a legitimate weapon. So let's actually test this out. Let's see if we can break it a little bit. For this one, I'm actually going to throw on some safety glasses because I am worried that this wood is actually going to shatter on me. So let's do some damage to this Wing Chun dummy and just see if this thing's going to break. So here we go. Okay, I mean it's doing a pretty, oh, look at that. Just, it dinged the wood pretty bad, and that wood crushed in there. That actually crushed in pretty bad, and the spike came out. Oh yeah, the spike's actually inside the Wing Chun dummy now. Let's do some more damage to it. I want to see how easily this thing's actually going to break in half. That's what I want to see. So, okay, so there we just lost 2 more spikes there. So now we're down 3 spikes just by hitting, and look how they just dig into that Wing Chun dummy. So it definitely would be an effective weapon in that respect. I mean, this could really hurt someone bad, but it's not going to last you very long. I mean, you can see it's just breaking. But, I mean, it's holding up. It's just, you'd probably have to restain it a bunch. Okay, so now we've lost half the spikes in this thing. So again, very disappointing. I don't know what kind of wood this is, but that is definitely not a very high quality hardwood. So definitely a Mall Ninja weapon. Definitely awesome for display. And I know what you're asking yourself. You're saying, well, Kyle, if you know that these weapons are just kind of cheesy and they're for Mall Ninjas, why do you guys even carry them on KarateMart.com? And that's a good question. And the reason why we do is because a lot of people like this kind of thing. A lot of people like to hang this kind of thing on their wall. I know that when I was younger, I actually had all kinds of these Mall Ninja type weapons hanging on my wall just because I was pretty nerdy and I just liked that kind of thing. So we carry them just for people who like more fantasy type of weapons or cosplayers or people who want costume weapons. So yeah, there's not much more to say about this. Not impressed at all, but I'm going to go ahead and put this away and let's move on to our next Mall Ninja weapon. All right, Amanda, what is our next cheesy Mall Ninja weapon?
There you go.
Awesome, thank you. All right, let's see what this is. Okay, and our next Mall Ninja weapon is the hooked Badlands sword. Okay, let's see what this guy looks like. Oh yeah, that's Mall Ninja for sure. All right, so first off, we can see that it comes with this nylon sheath, and the sheath is actually pretty heavy duty, so I'm impressed with that. Now the shoulder strap. We're seeing more and more of these shoulder straps on these weapons lately, and I am just not impressed with them. They're just too thin, and they're a little too small too. Like if I were to actually try to put that over my head, that wouldn't work. So I do not like that. That bothers me in the first place. But I know you guys don't care about that. You want to see the weapon itself. So let's check this thing out. Okay, that is Mall Ninja in a nutshell right there. Kind of cool looking though, very post-apocalyptic. So we can see that it is made from one solid piece of 3CR13 stainless steel with a black anodized finish that goes all the way through the handle. And then it's got this nylon cord wrap handle that just kind of gives it a little grip. So that's not bad. The things that I don't like about this. So first off, we can see that they put some venting down here towards the blade. And the problem with that is that venting actually takes away some of the integrity of the blade. Like I'm worried that if I were to strike this too hard, it'd actually break right there. So I don't really like that in the first place. And then we've got all these little aesthetic details on here. We've got these little key rings on here, which to me just look a little bit cheesy. I'd probably take those off. I could see why some people might like that if it was hanging on their wall. But how do we hold this thing? So I guess we put our hand there and then kind of wrap our thumb around there. That's actually fairly comfortable. So I would probably hold it in forward grip and then use that spike on the bottom for hammer strikes or something like that. Now, if we look at the blade itself, I actually kind of like the way they sharpened this. So they did a hollow grind down here on the blade itself, and it's fairly sharp. The tip is fairly sharp, but then they kind of gave it a false edge up here or a swedge. that just gives it a really nice aesthetic look. So you could sharpen that up if you wanted to. Again, this is another trailing point blade, which I'm not a huge fan of trailing point blades, but it does give it a really unique look. So if you were to hang this on your wall, I actually think that would look kind of cool, but we want to test this thing out. So let's actually test this and see how easy this piece of metal is going to break, because my problem with it is this is 3CR13 stainless steel and that is fairly thin. So that worries me just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and throw on my safety glasses again because I don't want to get hit in the eye with any piece of metal. But let's go ahead and test this out on the Wing Chun dummy and just see how durable it is. So I'm going to just start by swinging it down. I mean, that's in there pretty good. So once again, despite the fact that this is a Mall Ninja weapon, this would definitely be effective in certain scenarios for sure. Let's try stabbing with it. I mean, not bad, honestly. I'm not a huge fan of trailing point blades just because they're not great for stabbing, but that did better than I thought it would. So I'm actually fairly impressed, but I want to try to actually break this thing, see if it's going to break right here. So you know what I'm going to do is there's this spike left in here from that club that we just used. I'm going to see if I can cut that out with the blade, and then in the process maybe I can bend this, maybe I can break it. We'll just see. Okay, so I got it out. The blade is not bent at all. I mean, that's fairly impressive. And I mean, if you look at the Wing Chun dummy here, it chopped the heck out of it. So that is very impressive that this blade actually did that much damage to it. So honestly, this Mall Ninja weapon could do some damage in the right hands. So the blade length is approximately 14 inches, the total length is approximately 24.5 inches, and the total weight is approximately 15.7 ounces. So that is a nice weight for this sword. I'm actually fairly impressed, but let's go ahead and put this away and move on to our next Mall Ninja weapon. All right, Amanda, what is the last Mall Ninja weapon you have for me today?
I saved the best for last.
Awesome. You always do. So let's see what this guy is. I don't see how they can get much worse than we've already seen.
Find the most cheesiest.
Oh, wow. All right, and our last Mall Ninja weapon of the day is the Alien Fantasy Axe. Okay, this is something else. All right, so first off, we can see that it comes with this wooden display plaque. So that is kind of cool. To me, the display plaque is the definition of Mall Ninja. That means that we can just hang it on our wall, put it right there. You know what, guys? I should probably hang this on the wall behind me so you can see it every week, because this is a real treat right here. So if we look at this, this is clearly Mall Ninja for so many reasons. First off, we have this hidden blade right here. So we clearly have the shape of an alien, and if we hit this button on top, out pops the hidden blade. Look at that. That is awesome. So this is made from a 440 stainless steel, and then it's got this like little rubberized little accent thing there, which is kind of interesting. Gives it a neat kind of alien-esque look. So I kind of like that a little bit. Now the blade here is not very sharp. So if I was gonna actually use this for any sort of weapon purpose, I would probably sharpen that up a little bit. The tip's not very sharp. I mean, it's sharpened, but not really sharpened. So I'm actually kind of curious if we can use this as a knife first off. I mean, I don't even have a very good grip on this. If I was gonna grip it and stab something, I could see my finger just kind of sliding into that little blade there. So I don't really like that, but let's test it out in the Wing Chun dummy that we just put so much damage in today. Okay, yeah, that's not good. And as I was worried, my finger just kind of slid into that blade. Didn't hurt myself, but it definitely is not a very effective knife. So if you're gonna buy this thing, I would probably not use this as a knife. But it is kind of cool. Like, I like the fact that we can just kind of slide that in and then it just becomes part of the axe. So that's kind of neat. So I could see it being used on the reverse side of the axe if we wanted to use it as a weapon. So that's kind of neat. The pommel is pretty interesting. We can see that we've got a blade here. Again, sharpened, but not sharp enough. Same with here, sharpen, not sharp enough. The handle is what bothers me the most on this. That looks to me like some sort of ABS. I don't like that. That tells me that this thing's probably gonna break, especially considering we have like a cast metal up here connected into the ABS. I don't see how that could be durable in any way, but we're gonna test this thing out for sure. Now again, we've got a 440 stainless steel blade up here, which is actually fairly thick. So that blade is the one thing that kind of impresses me. I'm not a big fan of this venting back here because I believe that that actually takes away some of the integrity on the blade. And then again, I'm not sure how well that's connected into the cast metal there. I mean, it feels pretty sturdy. I'm slightly concerned that this cast metal is just gonna break when we try to hit something with it. The tips here are kind of sharp, not overly sharp. I would take this whole thing to a belt sander and sharpen it up, or just a whetstone or something. But we've got to test this thing out. So the head blade length is approximately 9 3/4 inches. The total length of this thing is approximately 20 3/4 inches, and it weighs about 2 pounds, 3.5 ounces. So that is a fairly heavy weapon. For a cosplay weapon, awesome, definitely awesome. For a weapon on my wall, awesome. I mean, I'd actually personally feel a little cheesy with it on my wall, but it would be awesome for a lot of people. But let's go ahead and test this thing out a little bit. Let's actually first start by just striking the axe head. Make sure the handle doesn't just break off on us. So let's start with that. Okay, that actually stuck in there pretty well. Once again, I'm just gonna play it safe with the safety glasses because I am slightly concerned this thing might break on me, but we'll see. All right, I'm gonna try the back of this right here and just see if that breaks first, because that can't be very secure. I mean, it actually stuck in there okay, and it doesn't seem like it damaged it. Let's try the pommel on this thing. Now, striking with the pommel on this thing in any sort of hammer strike, I'm a little worried because, I mean, my hand might slide down and hit that blade there, so I'm gonna have to really grip it hard in order to do that, because I do not want to get injured on this thing. But, I mean, look at that. That's actually not that bad. Fairly impressive. So, I mean, people who talk bad about Mall Ninja weapons, you can effectively use them if you practice with them. They're just not something that's going to hold up very, very long for you. So, but let's try to break this thing, because I actually want to see how easily this breaks between the handle here. So I'm going to chop this a little bit and just see what happens. I mean, jeez. It's not breaking. I mean, it's still completely solid. I'm actually pretty impressed. I don't know if that thing's gonna break on me. Maybe I should try striking it from the side to see if it's gonna break that way. Let's try that. Yeah. Okay, so look at... Amanda, can you grab that head over there? Okay, so as we can see, this is the way that they made that. It's actually not that bad, honestly. We've got some carbon steel in here that goes up through the handle. I was concerned that the handle by itself was just complete plastic, but that is actually a carbon steel insert in there. So that's not as bad as I thought it would be. And then we can see that it's threaded onto this little rod right there, but the rod actually broke inside there on the threading. So the metal actually broke. It wasn't the plastic that broke, it was actually the metal that broke. So to me, that's a little bit surprising. That's kind of interesting. So if that happened, you could still use this blade as a brass knuckle if you had to. Yeah, just know that something like this is probably not going to hold up wonderfully for you, but it held up better than I thought it would. So not that bad, actually. But honestly, I'm extremely curious which weapon you're going to vote for this week. So I'm going to put up 2 polls this week. I want you to first vote for which weapon you liked best, And then second, I want you to vote for which weapon you thought was the cheesiest Mall Ninja weapon that I showed. So make sure you guys go to the community tab and vote for both polls this week. But if you have any questions on this alien fantasy axe or any of the other weapons I showed off in this video, definitely leave them in the comments below. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel, and check out KarateMart.com because we've got all sorts of really cool weapons on there right now, including some Mall Ninja weapons and plenty of legitimate weapons. But until next week, we'll see you Weapons Wednesday.